Back when JRPG Jungle was a blog in 2014, a game I had a lot of curiosity about before I ever visited Japan was Akiba's Trip. Every person who has dived far enough down the game and anime fan rabbit hole likely knows Japan's Akihabara is supposed to be a haven for both of those things, and Akiba's Trip always promised a way to visit that town remotely, both before I'd been to Japan and now that I'm here. My revisiting of this game, now having seen the real Akihabara, proved that this is very much true, especially for anyone who has visited the city in the last 10 years, or at least pre-pandemic. The best part of this new version is that you can play it on Switch, with this older game running well enough on the handheld that allows you to experience it anywhere, and it's been a fun game to try with an interesting premise that let me enjoy Akihabara just like the first time I went there. While Akiba's Trip is technically the second entry in the series by Acquire, this shouldn't matter for those playing, with its unique premise swiftly demonstrated and letting you understand what it is from the start. Protagonist Nanashi is captured by a shady group after responding to a sus note for work that promised to pay in rare figures. He receives much more than he bargained for though, as through their experiments he somehow survives and gains vampiric qualities, meaning he has to cover his skin from the sun and has also gained a small taste for human blood. The covering of skin can go both ways though, as if Nanashi does an action that involves putting the S and the T together from Akiba's Trip to enemies, he can take them down to help protect Akiba. So with this, and the hope of becoming human again, he begins his journey with Akiba's freedom fighters to keep the city safe, with a mysterious girl in tow, a puntastic little sister, and a fun script to keep everything pretty entertaining. There's one more special point about this particular version of Akiba's Trip aside from being on Switch for the first time, and that's that it's the director's cut of the game. An additional route with a true ending attached has been added for the maid costume wearing Kati, a route that's supposed to make you betray the party and has some dark tones in the trailer that look pretty cool. Additionally, extra quests from Akiba's unique citizens also have been added to give you plenty to do, and with this on top of its new equipment that I may have scrolled through in its toy box mode, there's a thing or two to spice up this new version of an old game that should be good for fans looking for an excuse to get back in. As someone essentially playing Akiba's Trip for the first time though, the new features are really just a cherry on top that I'll find later in my playthrough, and while I know they're there, currently I'm just enjoying this version of Akiba and the unique parts of it that make it fun to play. I spent about 3 hours with Akiba's Trip and found it enjoyable enough to want to keep playing, even though it's aged enough to make it feel like a B-grade JRPG experience, but an enjoyable one at the very least. When it's not using beautiful, high-quality anime stills, character models definitely look lower quality compared to what we've come to expect these days, although it doesn't suffer from any of the fuzziness that games sometimes have on Switch that actually helps it look better on portable than some newer games in a sense, and as someone who picks up games on PlayStation to try and avoid that visual issue, it's something I can appreciate. The visual smoothness is good, as one of my favorite things I enjoyed doing was going back to the Akihabara of 2012 and 13, which is actually much closer to Akiba how I saw it when I first came to Japan. Since the pandemic, while you can still find many of the classic buildings like K-Books and Maid Dreaming that are featured in the game, the big Sega buildings have been rebranded recently that were some of the central marks of Akihabara. So in Akiba's Trip, having everything as I personally remember them when I used to frequent Akihabara more is very cool, and is definitely what I'm treating as a virtual time capsule that is honestly something I treasure as a frequent enjoyer of nostalgia. There are a few things different in Akiba's Trip to real Akiba though, and that's that vampires who are allergic to the sun don't usually roam the area or require combat to be initiated and articles of clothing to, let's say, be sent to the cleaners, at least as far as I know. Combat is a fairly beat-em-up style, but with some RPG elements, with its unique premise meaning that HP is divided into 3 bars that indicate your head, chest, and hip equipment durability, and if they get to 0 on you or your opponent, it's off to the cleaners with that item and exposure to the sun. So as a fellow Akiba vampire, you'd hope to be dealing those sun rays and not getting them. If you're into the clothes flying part of this, there's a lot of wacky animations to enjoy, but another part I've always remembered from this are the wild amount of weapons you can use, with your character able to wield anything from brooms to high-spec PCs, and while some are more effective than others, and you can't do the more modern thing of skinning the weapons you like but equipping the more powerful ones, there there are still a lot of funny things to pick up and try fighting with, and if you're curious, the Toy Box mode where you can start the game with all equipment is a good way to sample all the weaponry it has to offer. Its colorful battles are partnered with an equally colorful script and dub, with the only thing I've found so far are that its quest objectives aren't always the most exciting. All the main and side quests I've done so far have basically been go here, do something simple, then go back to HQ, and while there are more interesting side quests promised, I haven't seen anything yet that has made me overly wanting to do them, with me actually finding more amusement talking to the street dwellers and checking out shops and minigames in the city that have provided more amusement. I hope this changes throughout, although I wasn't overly encouraged by a bug I found trying to initiate Nana's quest when I accidentally walked into her that turned my game non-responsive. Luckily, quick save and a reload helped me with this, but it was in my first few hours that had me hoping that this isn't prevalent in other parts of the game too. Thanks to how much I like the city and how it runs on Switch though, I'm feeling pretty optimistic and hope to jump in for more. If you've ever been to Akiba, it's a good way to test your memory of the city, as you really can run around with how it's laid out exactly like the real thing, and to have these weird and wonderful things to play with in this version of it, I can't help but be curious about the colorful fictional story that'll unfold in this real life town. I don't know when I'll get back to this one, but I do know that I want to, as this original Taken story set in this place makes for an interesting experience that I hope to see through to the end. While I don't have much to say about its director's cut content, I can say that I enjoyed my time with Akiba's Trip on Switch. Despite encountering a bug, it otherwise ran pretty well, and its older graphics look good on its handheld, and while it's not going to compete with any JRPG frontrunners in terms of story or complexity, it's a quirky and enjoyable experience for those who like to dip their toes into a not-so-serious JRPG every now and then. As one of those people, Akiba's Trip has me curious enough to keep it in mind for when I'm feeling the mood or like a trip to Akiba without taking the subway, and serves as a great memory of the city with a colorful story put on its backdrop to enjoy that I look forward to running around in again as an enjoyable B-grade time capsule of a very special city. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried Akiba's Trip, and if you have, what did you think of it? You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below. Thank you to Xseed for the code, and until next time, thank you, bye!